Hello and welcome to an AVForums short video overview of the Sennheiser Momentum 5 wireless headphone. My name is Ed Selly, I'm the Hi-Fi editor for AVForums. What I'm actually going to do, get them going, and I'm going to take them with me to the high-end show in Vienna. So I will use them on a plane and in busy environments and do the sort of things that Sennheiser envisages you doing with the Momentum 5. But I do know that by the time that I sit back down on the sofa and sort of wrap everything up, I'll have a better idea about what £330 worth of your hard-earned cash gets you in terms of wireless headphones and where the Sennheiser sits in comparison to its key rivals. So, I went to Austria, I listened to them, and I came back. And I've got the appalling cough as a souvenir, so go me. However, that trip was a bit of a revelation, really. There is a video on the site already of me talking about the HDB 630, which is still very much in production, still placed above the Momentum 5 in terms of the Sennheiser range. Unlike quite a lot of people on YouTube and beyond, I wasn't unequivocally positive about the HDB 630. I felt that there were some aspects of its design and operation which weren't quite as good as they could be. What's quite surprising, there's not a massive difference in terms of how the Momentum 5 looks and feels and behaves over the HDB 630. And yet I find myself coming away from the experience, particularly my travel experience, an awful lot more positive than I did about the more expensive model. Why is that? Well, first of all, let's just look at the spec and work out what might be the cause of it. Because on the face of it, not only has not a lot changed from the Momentum 4, because the Momentum 4 and the HDB 630 are quite similar in terms of their hardware, it's quite similar to that as well. They're still 42mm dynamic drivers of an unknown material placed in each enclosure. It's a closed back dynamic driver headphone. Bluetooth, as it stands at the moment, where this video is being recorded in June 2026, is 5.4. The website promises that they are Bluetooth 6 compatible and will be converted to Bluetooth 6 in time. But mechanically, there's not a huge amount different, and they don't look wildly different either. What Sennheiser says they have done is they've been beefing up the processing platform on which they're based. This is now spatial audio capable, either with a native spatial audio mix, or you can actually just use a sort of faux spatial audio mode, which works better than I thought it was going to. They've increased the number of microphones. There's new software for correcting the effect in windy environments. And there's an 8-band EQ, for which I've done a little video bit, and some sound personalization software as well. Now, the reason for the sound personalization software is if you ask a relatively sane, normal person, how much do you think you need to deviate from the standard EQ? They're just going to look at you and go, I don't know. So what it does is it just plays bits of track and then overlays strings, drums, bass, so on and so forth, and you choose the relationship of those bits to each other, you choose the dynamic listening levels and so on and so forth, and it simply takes that feedback and it applies some settings for you. It works really well. And if it's the choice between simply having no adjustments because you've looked at a more intimidating system and gone, I'm not getting into that, I think it works brilliantly. But you have the option to tweak the EQ as well. It's not as sophisticated as the one in the HDB 630, but I think it's probably good enough for most people. You also don't get any form of dongle supplied with the Momentum 5. You can buy the same dongle that comes with the HDB 630, or you can use an aftermarket one. I used a Creative Labs one for a bit of testing here. But it's aptX lossless capable as well, should the fancy take you, and you can use it over USB. Although, oddly, it threw a bit of a wobbly trying to do that with my MacBook Pro. I'm not 100% sure why. Bowers & Wilkins worked exactly the same, worked better over exactly the same cable, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but it worked flawlessly via my phone. It's this processing which has made the difference. First of all, in terms of sitting on a plane, listening to music, in fact, listening to music during takeoff, these are sensational. I haven't tested better noise cancelling than this. Sony's XM6 was my previous gold standard. These are better than the XM6. And we don't have an XM6 here anymore. Sony tend to ask for things back. In terms of then using the app, using the functionality, Sennheiser's app is so much better than Sony's, it's not a point of competition. Sony's app has the standard Sony's issues of being extremely complicated. Like Bose and Wilkins' app, it needs a login, which I loathe. Sennheiser doesn't have any of those things. It just works, and it works flawlessly. What works less flawlessly is that, like the HDB, like the Momentum, this is a touch sensor for you to do multiple functions. I battled with it for about 15 minutes and I turned it off. The app is good enough, and for fundamental adjustments, you just don't need it. I much prefer a button arrangement. This is just too sensitive and it just tries to do too much. The fact that you can turn it off means that you can just ignore it, fundamentally. If I'm still doing nitpicking, I would like you to note that whilst this is not a small enclosure, this actual space for a human ear is smaller than some key rivals. Now, like the HDB 630, I am at pains to stress that I don't have particularly big ears and I have found these to be perfectly comfortable. But there is feedback online from people who are more orally endowed, shall we say, and I can completely understand why they might find this a bit restrictive. Otherwise, I found it extremely comfortable. The thing is, along with that noise cancelling, the processing has just made this a fundamentally better device to listen to. It's worth pointing out that the flat EQ setting that it ships without the box has a hilarious amount of bass. It is not in any way, shape or form flat. It's just far too much. I mean, it makes Enya sound like heavy dub. But given it's so easy to adjust, and you can just adjust it on the fly as you're listening to stuff, it's of no consequence. You can get the setting that you want. In the good old days, bad old days, in the old days, if a headphone had this much bass out of the box, I'd have to, get my red pen out, be very strenuous. Here, it's of no consequence. In fact, talking about sound quality is a bit of a sort of non sequitur these days, because you can make these sound pretty much how you want them to sound. But the fundamental underpinnings are sufficiently good that it really doesn't matter. It's going to be able to produce the sound that you want it to do. Now, at this point, I'm going to reach down. The Bose PX7 S3 is still here. And I feel, putting the Sennheiser down for a moment, this is still a better piece of industrial design. The way that this is done with these arms means that this is a smaller and more compact unit. The Sennheiser's case is smaller than the HDB 630's, so there's less in it, but the Bose case is still smaller than the Sennheiser's. I still think this is a nicer piece of industrial design. The buttons are much more intuitive to use than the Sennheiser's touch panel. But we have to go back to the fact that the Bose app is nowhere near as good as the Sennheiser's one. Its EQ is much simpler. There's none of the sound personalization software. Essentially, if you were choosing one of these to live with, especially in noisy environments, whilst I really like the PX7S3 and I like the Sony as well, I would unhesitatingly choose the Momentum because the Momentum is better. And in some ways, I find myself much more positive about the Momentum 5 than I do the HDB 630. The HDB 630 feels like a world-class piece of software attached to a headphone where the design and mechanical implementation isn't quite as good as it could be. I still think there's a better headphone to be had out of that software implementation. Maybe because I didn't have the same expectations for the Momentum 5, I haven't run into that. Weirdly, there have been a number of points where my notes have suggested where I could feel mechanical limitations to the HDB 630's design. I haven't really encountered that with this. I've thoroughly enjoyed using them. And more often than not, I've just found myself listening and not actually focusing on any of the design aspects of it. I'm simply enjoying the performance as it results. And that kind of has to be the whole point of this. You can listen for 57 hours, a figure which is slightly arbitrary, but it does feel perfectly attainable in use. You get the standard fast charging. You can listen over USB. You can do all the things that we have come to expect a headphone in this class to be able to do, and it does them brilliantly. I have gone on at length over various reviews that whilst I occasionally measure things here for my own edification, measurements in themselves are not the be-all and end-all. I have no doubt that this measures pretty well. I have no doubt that the EQ is very good, and whilst it's not as effective as the one on the HDB 630, it's good enough. Where I do care, and I bang drums passionately about this, is that the user experience, touch panel aside, on this is pretty much flawless. Everything about them encourages you to pick them up and use them out and about, use them on planes, use them on trains, just get your money's worth out of them in a way that is better realised than any other headphone I've tested at the price point. And this is why I have awarded them a best in class badge. They are not perfect. There is, as Phil Hinton will point out, no such thing as a completely perfect product, but their limitations are more adequately bypassed than on any of their key rivals. I think this is a sensational product. It is where my £300 would go, on the understanding that based on the pricing of the Momentum 4 over time, if you give it a little bit of time, you can probably find them for a bit less than £300. I'd like there to be some more interesting colours. I think the world is a bit boring at the moment, and I don't mind the blue, but something a bit lighter and more vibrant wouldn't go down badly either. But this is, again, nitpicking. The fundamental user experience of the Momentum 5 is sensational, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. If you've enjoyed this little eulogy to Sennheiser's latest effort, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There'll be more content from myself and my colleagues in due course. All that's left for me to do is thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye.